things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
G'day folks, how are you? Just thought we might try and get this out of the way early tonight. I'll be back in a minute. Right, let's see how that goes, shall we? He likes to kick me out for some reason after I've started the show, so now if I reset once I'm in the show, it seems to be all right after I've done absolutely nothing. So anyway, Vince has had a bit of a look at the computer today, and as a good technical person, he was able to discover many things, none of which related to anything we needed to fix, but he was very helpful in other areas, as is his wont. And I'm not sure if he's in the chat yet, but hello, Vincenzo, if you are, my good friend. Who was in Found first tonight? Daniel! Look out, they're wide awake in Canberra tonight, mate. Hope you are well and life, the universe, and everything progresses. Not too badly. I know you're a bit of an Ainsley supporter too, I think, from memory. So Ainsley at the moment, there is so much talk about silver and how it's being manipulated. Smarter men than me can tell you more about it, and you'll find those smarter men than me at ainsleyBullion.com.au. Have a look for their newsletter. There is a huge amount of information that's coming out about what's going on in the markets at the moment. The US market lost $1.7 trillion yesterday in trading, and that's continuing, I believe, or today in today's trade. So that hasn't seemed to be reflected too badly in the Australian market. I don't know for sure because I haven't really looked, but I thought I would have heard about it if there had been some huge crack. And silver at the moment is sitting at 51.44 with gold at 4,621.99, which is just down a little bit, I think, from last night when we were talking. I do have a chat in place for or a request for a chat in place with Michael Engerman from Ainsley Bullion. Hopefully that'll happen Saturday morning, unless we can organise something earlier, but they are extremely busy there at the moment. I have a lot of questions. I'm wondering whether or not the Reserve Bank is buying gold from them and they're shipping it out by the truckload, and are the Reserve Bank in turn shipping it out of Australia by the plane load and shipping it to New York, where there seems to be just a golden road, or should we say a golden air path to New York City and the Federal Reserve, which is something we should all be keeping quite an eye on. It seems at the moment that all the gold at Fort Knox, which everybody seems to believe doesn't actually exist at Fort Knox, seems to be being returned from the Bank of England. And, yeah, well, we know how that plays out. Paul's bragging. He's got mangoes and bananas that you can pick right off the tree. Good on you, Paul. Which part of the world are you in? I like bananas. And mangoes too. I like them if they're cold. Nothing like a nice cold mango cheek. And for those of you who haven't had cold mango cheek and maybe a little bit of cream or ice cream, you don't know what you're missing. And that from a bloke who doesn't eat a great deal of fruit. DM was in the house too. Spaz is in town. Hope you are well, mate. Donna and Margot. I think I may have said hello to Margot. Aussie Sue, God love you. You're in town too. Peter Grace, who's got a bit of smoke near his place. I haven't got the picture that he sent me up, but there was a lightning strike about 10 k's from his place at Pinaroo, and certainly spectacular fire in the evening last night. He sent me through a couple of pictures today. We've had a bit of a day here on the property. I'll get to that shortly. It ended with a gunshot, so I'm still here. We'll get to who isn't in a while. Who else is there? Agate Masters in town. Sorry if I've missed a few people. God love you, Sunflower. I hope you and Rick are doing well and recovering. Pneumonia and pleurisy is unfortunately what Sunflower has managed to pick up recently. And God love you, woman. I just hope you're looking after yourself. And thank you for everything that you do for Rick and for me and for everybody else that's around you. But please, please do something for you. Make sure you are looked after. You're a very important person. Speaking of very important people, they won't be in the show tonight, I don't think. Sandy and Baz. Now, Sandy and Baz from the Donkey Sanctuary. Now, last Friday night you met Sandy, showed you around the Donkey Sanctuary a little bit. And I've got to tell you that shortly after that happened, that story went to air, Barry and Sandy received some tragic news, and that was that Barry's brother had been killed in a truck accident in Queensland, in far north Queensland. So they've been on the road since that time, basically, to get up to far north Queensland and are making preparations, as you would expect, at this time. So our thoughts are with Sandy and Baz at this time, with Baz particularly. And if you want to express your love for them, I'm sure in here it'll get passed on. But hang on to it until you see Sandy pop up in the chat again. It might be a few days, it might be a week, it might be 2 weeks. We don't know. One of the issues that people are finding at the moment, and the further north you go here in Queensland, the more dramatic the effect seems to be. It's actually getting a funeral slot. So in many cases, in areas outside of the CBD area of Brisbane and the Sunshine and Gold Coasts, in many cases, you can't get somebody buried for up to 4 weeks. And that's because the demand for burials and the demand for services of undertakers is so high that they are unable to schedule funerals in quicker. Now, I'm not sure whether Sandy and Baz are going to strike this, but I'm sure they'll let me know if this is the case. We won't be able to do anything about it, obviously, but it is interesting to note that the funeral homes, if that is true, are working their asses off at the moment, burying people, and nobody seems to be talking much about it. How many funerals have you attended so far this year? How many did you attend last year? And how many of the people that you would deem unawake, how many funerals have they been to? And has it been pointed out to them that, well, maybe they need to start waking up a bit, taking a bit of a look at, and look, I guess it's difficult. No normie is going to walk around and think, oh, I might just go into the undertaker and see how long it takes to be buried these days. So maybe you can do some investigation in your area and let me know, Carl at vofhq.com. Just ring your local funeral home and ask how long, if I was to die tomorrow, how long would it take to bury me? I'd be very interested in those answers. I think it would be very interesting at all. The Sabinator is in the house. Tony is in the house. Johanna, I hope you are doing well. And Peg. Who else have I missed? Ads. There's a few in there. Tony's counting down for some reason. I'm obviously not in sync with the program. I'm well back. Anyone buy a moon landing anniversary coin? Oh, did I laugh out loud? I'm sorry. Do you know that there is a new Trump coin out for his second term? It's got 24 karat gold on it. I think for $40 you can buy it. So it's fairly cheap gold, hasn't got a great deal on it, but it would be quite the novel thing. They look absolutely spectacular. However, do you really want one? Could be the question. Now, let me just see if I have got, don't tell me I've lost it. I had a site I was going to show you wonderful people. And let me just see if I've still got it saved down the bottom of my list of things I'm talking about. And I do. All right. This is something I'm going to post up in the chat. it is to do with Donald Trump. I'm just going to keep moving through here quickly to make sure I've acknowledged everybody. G'day, Solly. Daniel, Sandra, Belinda. Lovely to see you in Belinda. Lovely to have you back again. God, love you, woman. You too. Another spectacular member of our family. Redneck Rumbler too. Excellent. All right. Hello, Michelle Bradley Smith, another one of our great mods. Ian, everybody, I'm trying to catch up. Dusty's in the house. Australia for Freedom. Howdy. I hope you're doing all right too. All right. You might have seen in my shows recently, I've been sort of querying a little bit of what's going on with Donald Trump. In fact, behind the scenes, I'm querying huge amounts of what's going on with Donald Trump, and I have been for some time. Now, I'm going to post up a link in the chat. Don't immediately run off to it right now, all right? Don't immediately run off to it, but do click it, bookmark it, go back and have a bit of a read later on. It does present a very interesting past history of the Trump family. So the 13 part isn't part of it. That was just the number on my run sheet. So delete 13 in that link. Now, this is a very interesting article, and that leads to a number of other very interesting articles based on a whole variety of things that have happened in Europe that affected America over the years. Now, some of the things that you will read in this post that I've put here are quite eye-opening and relatively shocking, but I would urge you to understand that we are watching a movie. These are character actors. In fact, I watched something today where Jim Carrey admitted he's not a real person. He's the person Jim Carrey is a character. And I understand that coming from an actor, because actors inhabit characters. They are empty vessels. If they are very good actors, they are completely empty vessels. Making conversations with them offset and out of character, very difficult in a lot of cases. And I would use Matt LeBlanc as a great example of that. I could list so many stars that I've had the opportunity to interview and try and get some sort of intelligence out of over the years. And I've got to be honest, better than 80% of them lack any ability to hold a conversation beyond something about themselves. And the other 20, well, that can be a bit of a mixture of a few different, but very, very few are 100% on the money. Anyway, read that website with a bit of interest, and it will, if you click through on a couple of the links that are supplied in it, you'll find some very interesting reading on Donald Trump. And it may give you pause to think and just wait before you get too excited about who and what Donald Trump actually is, because it might not be as it seems. Unfortunately, this is exactly what it seems. A New South Wales pedophile policeman has been jailed for just 6 months for soliciting child abuse material featuring babies. Now, I can't vouch that that is a picture of said police officer, so I'm not saying that's him, but this is something that is going on in New South Wales, Victorian and Queensland courts on a regular basis, in that the pedophiles seem to be able to get away with everything they are doing. And I find that horrendous. Something that you should probably find horrendous is our government making very large decisions that do affect every last one of you. And they have made these decisions and these laws in secret. Every one of the people who is currently standing for or will stand for election in the new next federal election knows what I'm about to tell you. Have they told you? No, they have not. what sort of deceitful bastards would have this kind of law passed and not discuss it with their constituents, not offer up in any way, shape or form some form of debate? No. Instead, and thank you to Penny J from My Place, Australia, Australia's new Defence Act 2025, mandatory military service. Australian government has quietly amended the Defence Act 1903, making all citizens aged 18 to 60 liable for military service in times of war, without public consent. This update, effective 21st of February 2025, means conscription could be enforced at any time by the Governor-General. Why wasn't it publicly debated? Penny asks a very good question. Is this a setup for war? Well, it certainly seems like it, and Albanese is starting to say, or make grunting noises in the fact that he wants to send Australian troops to Ukraine. What happened to self-determination and freedom of the soul? Well, the politicians got control of it, and my word, they certainly got control of it. Now, this is part 4 of that act. Division 1, liability to serve. Persons liable to serve in the Defence Force in a time of war. All persons, except those who are exempt from service under this part or whom this part does not apply to, who, A, have resided in Australia for not less than 6 months. Does that mean you don't have to be an Australian citizen to fight for us? First question. And C, have attained the age of 18 years but have not attained the age of 60 years. So let's just make that completely clear and obvious to everybody. Everybody between the age of 18 and 60 can be conscripted to go to war. This is now law. It has been passed by those people who currently are standing before you, telling you lie after lie after lie, in the hope that you will give them your vote. I ask you, what is worth voting for when you have bastards like this, sorry, Penny, not you, who will put this kind of thing together behind we the people's backs? Everybody, age of 18 years but have not attained the age of 60 years, are liable when called upon under Section 60 to serve in the Defence Force. And Vince went and looked up today Section 60, and it definitely says you are going to be serving in the Defence Force if the Governor-General proclaims it so. There is a proclamation calling upon persons to serve in a time of war. 1. In a time of war, the Governor-General may, by proclamation, call upon persons specified in Section 59 to serve in the Defence Force in accordance with the Act for the duration of the time of the war. A proclamation under the section must call for all persons in the order in which they are included in in classes established for the purposes of this subsection under subsection 3. Under 3, the regulations may establish a series of classes of persons for the purpose of subsection 2. They pay people to write this shit. A proclamation, this is 4. A proclamation must be laid before each House of the Parliament before, but not more than 90 days before, the day on which it is expressed to come into effect. And number 5, a proclamation does not come into effect unless within the period of 90 days before it is expressed to come into effect, it is approved by resolution by each House. It doesn't really matter what the rest of it says. The only bit you really need to pay attention to is Section 59, that says Section 59 Part C, which says quite clearly, persons are liable to serve in the Defence Force in a time of war. C, have attained the age of 18 years but have not attained the age of 60. Now, there will obviously be certain exemptions for that. If you are unable to serve physically, if you are unable to serve medically, if you're unable to serve for, well, a variety of different reasons. However, They have cast the net wide from 18 to 60. Now, when the last time conscription was introduced in this country, it wasn't introduced from 18-year-olds to 60-year-olds, I'm pretty sure. I'm talking about the Vietnam War in the late 60s. And I want to say the first tour of Nashos, as they were known, the conscripts, was 1967. I say that because my biological father was one of them. Now, he was taken at 18. And he'd been 18 for 6 months when his name came out of the barrel. Now, I don't remember too many 60-year-olds who went through the same thing, and it would be a small matter of researching what the age group was. I want to say it was 18 to 32. It might have been 18 to 40, but it certainly wasn't to 60. However, the Albo Sleazy government, enabled by the Uni Party and Frankenstein of Dutton and Co., the Teals, the Greens, and one can only assume the likes of One Nation, any other party in there. Have you heard Gerard Rennick get up and tell you this has happened? People first, my ass. Why isn't he up here screaming about this? Why wasn't he screaming about it all through January, knowing that this was going to come into force on the 21st of February? And people are considering voting for this bastard. And for One Nation. Trumpet of Patriots. Well, they could probably be half excused. I don't think they've got any members anywhere in the federal parliament, do they? Well, Babbitt would, in theory, know about this. So you would think Clive would know. Or is it Babette? Or is it Babert? Or, I don't know. I have no idea. It's bloody concerning is what it is. Why don't you ring your local member? Why don't you send them an email? Why don't you ask? WTF is going on here? Did you vote for this? I guarantee you won't see who voted for this. They won't have named the bastards. But it is happening, folks. It is 100% happening. And you, your kids, and potentially your grandkids, well, certainly your grandkids, are going to get caught up in a war that Albo Sleazy and Co. are wanting to generate out of Europe. They want to go and pick a fight with Russia, and we will talk about that shortly. X had a bit of a problem today, or in the last 24 hours, 36 hours or so. X was attacked. A DDoS attack, denial of, or direct denial of service attack. And they hammered X in a big way, trying to bring it down. Pardon me. Now, Elon Musk is working very hard to keep X going. He's also got his other businesses, Tesla, which has made over $1 billion loss so far in the last financial year, and doesn't look like recovering. It's taken another huge hit, their share price, in the last few days. I think dipped another 15%. Now, Elon Musk isn't actually running Tesla, nor is he running SpaceX. There are people in place who probably know a bit more about rockets in SpaceX's case, and who know a bit more about whatever in the other business. However, he does oversee it all, and he is showing a great deal sign of stress, and potentially the money that is being wasted or lost in his own businesses at the moment, now that he is so focused on DOGE and trying to help President Trump clean up the wastage in America. And my God, are they finding bits of wastage? Well, fortunately, in the attack today, it wasn't so much wastage they found. Elon Musk employs some of the smartest people in the world when it comes to using the internet. And they were able to identify where exactly these DDoS attacks were happening. It makes me think that he's got Vince employed, because Vince was able to do the same thing for me when we discovered that there was a DDoS attack happening on the Voice of Freedom website a little while back. And what we discovered from that was, I forget the number of servers though, it was a massive amount of IP addresses that we were getting. We tracked those IP addresses. We located those IP addresses to a building in Perth, on a street in Perth with a real street address. We tracked down, I tracked down the name of the company that was in that building. I also found out who the director of that company was, who the CEO of the company was, and through that process managed to find out where they lived, which wasn't terribly far from me. And they did have a Brisbane office. Rang the Brisbane office and asked the question about needing to speak to somebody in their security department. This is a company that does a lot of Australian government defence work and high security, internet security stuff. They pride themselves as being the upper echelon of security, cybersecurity in this country. I wanted to speak to one of their people because clearly they were being hacked if all their servers were hacking or trying to hack me and bring down the Voice of Freedom site. They didn't want to talk to me after that. They didn't put me through to anybody. I got a little Indian man on the end of the phone who was quite surprised that the phone was ringing, I think. And when it did, he took down all the details but didn't bother ringing me back. A few weeks later, I turned up with a letter and a camera on the doorstep of the CEO, who lives in Noosa, funnily enough, of all places. Now, he wasn't home at the time, or he was playing possum, so I left a little note for him. And funnily enough, I haven't heard anything back from them either. These direct denial of service attacks take place everywhere if you're saying something that they don't want you to get out. And fortunately, we have in Vince someone who's very able to protect me and the site from that sort of an attack. And obviously, Elon Musk has much better people and many more of them to be able to protect X in the way that he was able to today. So chin up, all good. $1.7 billion is how much Tesla has lost in the last year. That's not very pleasant at all. Now, the hate speech laws in Australia, I want you to think back to a little while ago when every other day there seemed to be some form of attack, anti-Semitic or otherwise, on, well, everybody, I guess, on synagogues in Melbourne, in Sydney, and other places. I'm just looking for this video that I want to play you. And I've got this new light, which you can see, but I can't see the bloody screen when it's on. And now I've got stars in front of my eyes, and I've got to find this bloody video because it's very interesting. Oh, maybe I'll just reload it again. If I can try and find it. Where is it? Oh, don't tell me it's one of those movies. There are certain files that I can show you and certain files that I can't show you. And if I download one of the ones I can't show you, then I've got to put it in a format where I can show you. Ah, look. Doesn't look like I've got it. My apologies. Don't know what I've done with that. No, bugger. My apologies. We'll go back to talking about other things. What I will just say about that is the Australian hate speech laws were introduced on the back of this anti-Semitic. Oh God, they're attacking Jews all over the place. They're spraying bad words on synagogues and they found a caravan full of explosives in Sydney that was going to be a synagogue attack, going to kill God knows how many people. Have an area, clear an area, 40 square meters. It'll just, oh God, it'll be horrendous. And you might recall that the Australian anti-hate speech laws were rarely spoken about, but really ramped up at that time. And the government, the uni government, that is, along with their supporters in the minor parties, rammed through the hate speech legislation based on the fact of, oh my God, the bloody Jews are being attacked left and right, we've got to stop that. Peter Dutton, I'm led to believe, isn't beyond the idea of bringing up a policy that says we should not be teaching Australian history or certain Australian history here. What we should be doing is teaching how sorry we are that the Jews were treated the way they were, I'm assuming, in the Second World War. it just goes to show how little people actually understand about not only the Second World War, but Judaism at all. And I know it can be a bit confusing, but, give yourself a bit of time. These hate speech laws were rammed through on the media fear that was generated by AFP and media heads popping up and saying, oh, how bloody serious this is. A caravan crammed full of explosives. If it had gone off, oh, God, the damage, the lives lost, and it would have been at a synagogue. It would have been at a synagogue. How the hell would they have known? Oh, there was a note inside it that said it was going to be. Bullshit! You are lying. And the AFP are continuing to lie, I believe. Now, of course, they've come out and said, oh, no, there was never any chance that this was ever going to be a public, emergency event. This caravan was never going to explode. Well, because it didn't have any detonator in it to begin with. Any detonators. None. But I imagine if somebody wanted to make it explode and they had a detonator, yes, potentially it could have exploded. But there was no fear of that. There was no note saying, oh, we're going to get the Jews with this. That was a lie created by somebody who will go forever unknown, I fear. But that is a major lie that needs to be drawn out. The person who created that lie needs to be exposed. Why would you generate such a lie? Well, because on the back of it, you can jam through hate speech legislation without debate, without letting, well, not that we expect those who are meant to represent us in Parliament to actually stand up and do anything, but it would be nice to give them the opportunity to try and do something. But instead, no, all debate was quashed, silenced, rammed through by the Uni Party, and our hate speech laws on the back of a caravan filled with explosives that was set up by organised criminals in a deal to try and get a lesser sentence from one of their brethren. A trade, if you will. But that's not the story the mainstream media or the AFP are spinning. And I have it on better than good authority that the words that came out of that lady's mouth yesterday about the whole anti-Semitic bullshit which they are still trying to ramp up, even though, while admitting that the caravan had anything to do with Jews, synagogues, or anything else, they're still trying to jam up that anti-Semitic rant, hoping that people believe it. And unfortunately, there are so many losers unable to think critically for themselves. And some are just a lost cause, but I live every day and I pray to God in heaven every night that we can reach some of these people before it's too late. Although they've already been squirted in the old shoulder, one would suggest it's potentially too late. The POMS are getting a bit excited about Life, the Universe and everything at the moment. I've got to say I'm very impressed with the way that they are treating their camera systems. Now, you might understand that the POMS are probably even more highly surveilled than we are in Australia. They have these multiple camera poles that are put up on street corners and streets everywhere through the UK, even in quite rural areas. Now, I understand there is a need to have security cameras in place. Bad things happen at night, to young men and women. And it would be nice. The idea of having cameras everywhere to keep you protected sounds like a great idea, if that is in fact all it was being used for. But it has been quite obvious that that's not all it's being used for. It's being used to generate revenue. And from vision captured on those cameras, ordinary POMs are being fined for the most fucking ridiculous things. Anyway, there is a group of them who have been very successful in lowering the number of cameras, and I mean lowering in a true sense of the word. These people have come in organised groups, almost commando-like, fully dressed in black, and they come in the dead of the night with a sawzall or a very big angle grinder. And what they do is saw these poles down, saw through the wires, saw through everything, and drop the poles on the ground. Now, there are huge fines involved for people caught doing this, and many people have been caught doing this. In fact, there are over $50,000 worth of fines already for people who have been caught dropping these surveillance poles. Nobody's paid them. Nobody plans on paying them. They've all been told that they won't be paying them. And now it seems that the UK police force has decided that it's not going to bother chasing up people who don't pay the $50,000 fine. So England is on the verge of shutting down the World Economic Forum's 15-minute city program after almost all the cameras were destroyed and 50,000 people refused to pay fines. Cameras cannot be protected if the police refuse to take action, is the quote. The courts are not in a position to convict so many people. All city cameras have been destroyed. Cheers to the Blade Runners, that's what they call themselves. This activist group has neutralised 80% of the cameras installed under the zero emission scheme that penalises vehicles that fail to meet standards. That level of intrusion in our lives hasn't erupted yet, but it won't be far, and the cameras are already in place. I was sort of praying for a big wave along Surfers Paradise Beach the other day. Not big enough to damage the buildings or the shops or anything like that, but just enough to wipe out all of the cameras along the beachfront there. Now, there are poles. Every second pole is a camera surveillance pole in that area. Every second pole, or every third. And every camera has multiple, or every pole rather, has multiple cameras on it. Sometimes as many as 5, up to 7 I've seen on one pole. The Blade Runners in the UK have the advantage that they're going into little quiet streets or even main roads in the middle of the night, but they're probably not doing it on one of the most tracked pieces of road in Australia along Surfers Paradise main beach. But I am sure it won't be long before people start going to Bunnings and getting Ozito sawzalls, and this kind of thing will start taking part in Australia. And maybe then, who knows, some of these corporations will figure out that we really are sick to death of them, and we are not going to play around with them any further. At all. Now, Western Sydney have got a new, really spectacular toy. It is a 13-meter high statue. It's a Hindu statue celebrating Hinduism, I guess. It is a 13-meter metallic structure. It is the largest metallic statue in the world. It's been opened in Western Sydney in a $43 million precinct, a million or billion, I'm not sure, precinct out in Western Sydney. And when Badgerys Creek opens, the new Western Sydney airport, which will open, I think, next year, when that opens, everybody will get a beautiful eyes view of that as you're landing in. It's going to become a Sydney icon. There was a Channel 9 report about it. That may be why I can't or don't want to play it. It's a Channel 9 report. But it is quoted in that report many of the Hindus who were there for the dedication of this statue, for which a Maharaja or a yogi or a holy man came out from India to draw a dot on its forehead, I think. And there are thousands of them out there. I mean, trust me, there'll be no shortage of Uber drivers now that this is going to open out there, because they'll be dropping in to pray all the time. I can only imagine what was going through the minds of these Indians celebrating in Melbourne. Now, it's a Hindu statue, forgive me, I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it's the Sikhs that wear the turbans. Are they really upset that they didn't get a statue too? Is this the kind of multiculturalism we can expect in our country, with Sydney getting a 13-metre Hindu statue and Melbourne getting a whole bunch of angry Sikhs flogging people with sticks? Where are the police? Have another look. You will see a police car in there. Well, you're probably going to have to look pretty close, but I might have found that Channel 9 story. But yeah, let's just have a look at this again. Yeah. So those are Sikhs, but let's just, I found that story. So let's just show you this magnificent thing in Sydney that's been constructed for the Hindus. No cultural war coming this way, I'm sure.
Hinduism is the fastest growing religion in Australia, with many Indian migrants settling in Western Sydney. And today, 9 News was given a first look at how a $41 million cultural precinct at Kemps Creek is taking shape, and a new landmark set to be a wonder of our West.
Arms raised to the heavens, a new beacon for thousands of Hindus.
To see it in person is truly heart-touching.
At 15 metres, the new sculpture at Kemps Creek is the tallest metal statue in Australia, and there's only 2 others like it in the world.
The values that this statue encapsulates, like peace, discipline, calmness, selfless service, are values that we can all resonate with.
Hundreds braving the rain today to see the unveiling of the new centrepiece of a $41 million cultural precinct, which will be the size of 14 football fields. Behind it, global Hindu group BAPS, who've built some of the world's most luxurious temples.
And the scale of it hits you when you see it and you walk through it. This is properly spectacular.
The guest of honour today, 92-year-old Guru Mahant Swami Maharaj, making the pilgrimage from India.
His Holiness had a vision for this statue 3 years ago, and now he's returned performing a Hindu ceremony to spiritually bring it to life.
With a lavish assembly hall now complete, construction to begin on the main temple, set to be one of the first things visitors see from the air as they touch down at the new airport.
It's an opportunity for Hindus around the city, Australia at large, to reconnect with their roots.
We're hoping that it does become somewhat of a landmark for Western Sydney.
In Kemps Creek, Elizabeth Bryan, 9 News.
And just so we can be sure, this is Melbourne. When in doubt, you can always call the coppers.
You. Good lad. Yeah, go for it. Fuck it. Yeah.
What are we turning into? God, what are we turning into? Oh, well, it just keeps going. Hey, Canada has a new Prime Minister. It's this bloke. His name is Carney. Now, ordinarily I wouldn't get too socially excited. Justin Trudeau's gone, yada, yada, bullshit, blah. Mark Carney is this guy's name. Very new to politics. And certainly not elected by the people, but the Americans are getting very excited that their Prime Minister wasn't elected by the people. Well, of course, Canada works under the same system we do. We don't elect a Prime Minister as such. He is the head of the party, and at least in this case, and it seems in Canada's case, there are a lot of morons voting for people like Albanese and Justin Trudeau. Or are they? That is the $64,000 question, isn't it? Are they really? At any rate, this bloke is a former central banker. What's not to like about him? We're talking about the new Prime Minister of Canada here, Mark Carney. Now, he was the head of the Bank of Canada right up until 2013, when he wasn't the head of the Bank of Canada anymore. He took up a new position then as the first non-citizen to run the Bank of England since it was founded in 94. So this bloke, Mark Carney, was the first non-citizen to be the head of the Bank of England. That'd be the Rothschild piggy bank we're talking about. And he's now the head of Canada. Out of the frying pan, into the fire, Canucks, I think. And we have a few people who watch us from Canada. God help you. God love you, but God help you. I don't know what's going to come forward with that. And he is no Donald Trump fan, of course. Mind you, I don't think there's too many governments in the world that are Donald Trump fans. But watch this space. Mark Carney, I think, is going to be a very interesting player as things unfold going forward. DOGE have made some pretty interesting cuts, as you've heard, through the bureaucracy of America. They have struck fear into the hearts of bureaucrats from coast to coast and from north to southern border. No stone is being left unturned. They are digging into absolutely everything. And when they go into a department and do an audit, the first thing that they have been doing is removing or stopping all the credit cards that have been issued to people in those departments. Now, the people who had those cards issued to them in the past have got quite irate that President Trump and Elon Musk's DOGE group have gone in and stopped their access to their credit cards. And they got so upset about it, they went to court. It's been portrayed as Trump had a huge loss because the court found that, oh no, if they had credit cards before, you can't take credit cards off them. They must have credit cards. So Trump and Musk gave everybody back their credit cards. But they did change the amount they were able to access on that credit card to $1. Now, we can almost hear the bureaucrats screaming from here in Australia. But maybe it's just an echo coming down the phone as they scream, "Don't let it happen to you," to their Australian counterparts. We need a DOGE set up in this country fastest. What we need first, though, is someone we all trust to see it through, to do the right thing when it comes to transparency and certainly with accountability. And I think we're still waiting for an appropriate person to come forward. I'm not completely sure yet that we've found them, but look, anything is possible. And when I say anything is possible, well, there is news out of the UK again today that proves something that I thought would be completely impossible has actually happened. Have a listen to this.
Long has collided with tanker Stena Immaculate in the outer anchorage. Both vessels are abandoning. Vessels who have firefighting equipment or who can assist with search and rescue, contact Humber Coast Guard on Channel 16. Vessel Stena Immaculate is carrying Jet A1 fuel, which is on fire and in the water. Request vessels remain at a safe distance.
A safe distance? France might be the safe distance, although I think it's on the other side of England. I don't think it's in the English Channel. Hell of a crash to have happen. There's a lot of fog around England, maybe. Certainly looked like a very rainy day. Nothing very spectacular to see there. However, this huge tanker with jet fuel on it, Jet 1A or Jet A1, just seems strange that it would go up the way it's gone up. Just saying, very strange. They have such amazing suppression systems on those boats that, well, it could have been a huge catastrophe, but I'll be very interested to follow that story further. The Solana, I'm not exactly sure what that is. I believe it's some sort of a bulk carrier. But to be able to do that kind of damage and have the entire ship essentially covered in flames. Although, if you rupture the vessel, the fumes, particularly when it comes to jet fuel, what's going to be the problem? The fumes will get into spaces before any heat or flame will. What will happen, though, when there is a bit of heat or flame that gets into those spaces too, the large amount of fumes in those spaces have gathered and you will get explosive detonation. I don't expect that ship's going to burn for very long. I expect it's going to wind up on the bottom of the ocean about where it is. It will burn to the waterline if it doesn't explode and sink. And I think the former is less likely than the latter, just between you, me, and the gatepost. Speaking of exploding things, there has been a lot of talk coming out of Russia about how evil are the Russians, how evil, how evil, how evil. Well, in fact, that talk hasn't been coming out of Russia. It's been coming out of the European Union, the bunch of unelected bureaucrats that run Europe. Well, Vladimir Putin has come out with a televised address today, and he has shattered, absolutely destroyed the lies of the Western elites. He's exposed exactly how the globalist leaders are using fear and propaganda and economic warfare to keep Europe under their control. He's gone to great lengths to explain that Russia has and never will threaten Europe. Russia never has threatened Europe. But he says, your leaders are. And he's 100% right. These unelected EU leaders are 100% jockeying to start a war with Russia. A war they cannot afford, although they say they're very prepared to go into debt for it. Of course they are. It's we the people, the slaves, that get to pay that debt. Europe, I wonder whether or not the Europe cesspit is deeper than ours. I think it's just older. I don't think it's deeper. Certainly filled with the same sort of shit. Who really caused the energy crisis was the question that Putin put forward today in his televised speech to Europe. Who really caused the energy crisis? Russia was providing gas at very low prices to Europe. They were using a couple of pipelines called Nord Stream 1 and 2. They got blown up. Who by? The Americans and the French and the POMS. That's who. That's an act of war. What did Russia do? Turned off the tap, stopped the gas going into the ocean, and started to rebuild. But make no mistake, what Russia did, or didn't do, I should say, should speak volumes to the world about the kind of man that appears to be leading Russia at the moment. Because the Nord Stream pipeline demolition was nothing short of an act of war. And the West should be made to pay for it. Putin also asked the question, who is destroying Europe from within? Well, of course, that is the bureaucratic machine. And he's pointing that out to European people, who I'm sure are not stupid. As I said last night, I was speaking to a friend of mine in Germany, certainly not a stupid man, and they, the people, are dead set against everything that their government is doing. But they're worried. There is nothing they can do except stand up and fight. Well, the German people will stand up and fight their government. They've been known to do it before, and I am sure they're going to do it again. There is a lot of squealing going with the elites, of course, because their access to funds is being limited, if not completely cut off. Putin plays a very large role in all of that, make no doubt. But today's speech was all about making sure that the people of Europe outside of Russia understood that Russia is not now and never will be your enemy, is the quote from him. But you can see for yourself, Europe is collapsing. Economically, in so many ways, it is collapsing. Whose fault is that? Well, that isn't Russia's fault. That is entirely the fault of the leaders of the European community. When are the Europeans, like the Australians, going to stand up and start ignoring these people? Turning their back on them, throwing them out, making them front justice. It has to start soon. Very, very soon. All right, ask yourself, as Putin pointed out in his speech today, why would Russia invade Europe? Any part of Europe. Russia is already larger than Europe. Russia already has more resources than any country in Europe. It is richer than all the countries in Europe. For what possible benefit would he have to invade Germany, France, England, anywhere else for that matter, Spain, Italy? What possible reason would Russia have? Oh, he's just insane. He's a madman. Well, if he was a madman, he would have already done it, don't you think? Doesn't really work out. The bit for me is that Russia has provided cheap gas, liquid petroleum gas, real cheap gas, food, real cheap wheat, oats, barley, that sort of stuff, really cheap to Europe. And a lot of other raw materials, being rare earth materials to other resources dragged out of the ground. And they have done that at relatively cheap prices, unbelievably cheap prices if you set them and compare them against Western standards and what Western globalist nations do to their people. We're the ones feeling that. Do you think Russia is in $1 trillion worth of debt as Australia is rapidly approaching? And with these unified globalist uni-party governments that are just going to keep on rolling on, unless we stop them, what's going to happen? Mainstream media aren't going to help you. They're dead silent. They're running dead in the water on this issue. They can't point out the logic lock. There is no reason for Russia to invade anywhere in Europe. All it would be is a cost to them. All right? They'd have to take over mining resources they already own in other parts of their own country. They'd have to take over the security. There is so much shit. Putin learned the lesson. The USSR failed because it was a lumbering beast with too many egos in military uniforms in control, amongst other reasons. But that was a large part of it. So I don't know. We've got to keep an eye on Europe because they are going to drag Australia into the war. And Albanese is very, very happy to be dragged into this war. Do not doubt that for one moment. Right now, today, there was a meeting in Paris where the Australian Defence Minister or his representative was meeting other European defence ministers or their representatives to discuss exactly what sort of level of involvement a peacekeeping mission into Ukraine might look like. Now, if we are going in a peacekeeping mission, that means that our boys and girls in the Defence Forces will be wearing the blue beret, not the slouch, and not our Australian beret. They will be wearing the beret of the UN, and they will be slaughtered. It'll be made to look like the Russians did the slaughtering, but it won't be the Russians who do it. It'll be the Ukrainians. We're going in there to try and help. Have absolutely no doubt about it. And Albo Sleazy cannot wait to offer up our young men and women who are currently serving. But what's more, after that information we've given you tonight about the conscription bill now coming into effect from the 21st of February this year, anyone from 18 to 60 can be called upon by the Governor-General, and you must serve, or you go to jail till the end of the war. Either way, you serve in the war until you die, or you go to jail until such time as the war ends or you die. That's what our Australian government has put in place for us. and not one of them told you they did it. Not one of those highly respected mainstream media organisations, trying not to swear, bothered to tell you, have bothered to report it in any way that I'm aware of. It's just disgusting. Just disgusting. How long have I been going? I've been going a bit over an hour. I should be shutting up. Should I have a bit of a look at what you've been chatting about here in the chat? Crypto has copped a bit of a scam. I don't know if it's a scam. It's had a bit of a drop, although even still 79,000, I think Bitcoin is at the moment, US dollars. It is just doing a little lull. These are not for, these are not unexpected drops, I think is what Vince was trying to tell me earlier today. Sunflower has the right idea. God love her. One nation sold itself out to everyone. Yep, I couldn't agree more with you. They've sold themselves. And look, okay, if you're going to sell yourself out, sell your party out, great. But be honest about it. You know? Be honest about it. I think the West Australian Premier's message was a bit of a lead into all of that. For people who aren't sure what the West Australian Premier's message was, I played this last night. This is how he calls himself. This is the West Australian Premier, Roger Cook. He may not be the West Australian Premier for much longer, but right now, this is what he calls himself.
I don't think the people in the Oval Office are listening to a subjurisdictional CEO in Western Australia.
A subjurisdictional CEO in Western Australia. He doesn't think the people in the White House are listening to a subjurisdictional CEO in Western Australia. I would agree with you 100%. I think he has certainly given you a little message there. And a message to every Australian if they have the ears and the eyes open to hear and see it. Maybe you should grab that little bit and play that to some of your friends who are a little less believing. Ask them to explain away, and they will find an explanation or an excuse for it. Have no fear. But draw them back to the definitions of each of the words that he used. It makes perfect sense when you view it from a corporate perspective. And that is exactly what it is, a corporate bloody perspective. Well, what else? Elon said the iPhone addresses were Ukrainian. The attack from X emanated out of Ukraine. That's probably half the story. I didn't tell you all of it. I'm good at that. My apologies. Yes, all of the attacks, that denial of service attack that X suffered, all came out of Ukraine. No, nothing to see here. Nothing criminal going on. Don't worry about us. Please just fly that drone away over there and have it blow up somebody. We don't care whether it's one of ours or one of theirs. It'll all look good on the television. Hate speech does need to go. Couldn't agree more with you, wild Aussie woman. There are so many bits that have to go. I've lost my reading glasses again. Thank you, Vincenzo. You're a good man. Who's yelling? Oh, was I yelling? I'm sorry. I do get a bit excited at times. Peter Dutton is a dreadful human being. I saw one of those chats up there. Well, I've never met him, but certainly he's too much like Voldemort for me to be too close to, I'm afraid. And if they just put a bolt through his neck, he'd be Lurch, wouldn't he? At any rate, calling him names and funny things, you do that to all politicians. It's a much deeper, serious issue. They expect us to do that calling of names, that insulting and that kind of thing, because they know it does no real damage to them. It makes us feel a bit better and a bit superior or whatever the hell it makes us feel. But it does absolutely no damage to them. None at all. So those that get really upset about how awful he looks, or, you know, what one says or how they say that, or whether he eats an onion like an apple or not, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Do not be distracted by the show, folks. Do not be distracted by the show. What we need to do is ignore the show. And I'm falling further and further on that side of the fence every day with the shit that I am seeing. Fake news everywhere. And Tony knows it 100%. We've got to fight the corporation, and to do that, we don't need any special training. We don't need any weapon other than ourselves. We, the people, are the power. These truths that you see on this show and other shows like this, whether it be Australian produced or internationally, these truths are self-evident. What is also self-evident is the complete lack of ability for us to seemingly do anything about it, for us to motivate enough people to get off their ass and do something about it. Now, what is the something? Well, maybe the something is not turning up to vote. Maybe that is the something. And if we can get 7.5 to 10 million Australians not to bother turning up to vote, that'd be bloody great. But I fear that getting 7.5 to 10 million people not to turn up to vote would be a very big ask, given the level of awakened knowledge we currently possess. Now, that could rapidly change in the next month. And I'm going to say month because today is the 11th. And I have been, and many of you, of course, have seen this date in April, the 11th, when all things are meant to change. The world's going to change. The financial system's going to change. Everything's going to change. Oh, heard it all before. But would love to think it's going to happen. Fingers crossed. That's all we can do. Fingers crossed. But I'm not banking on it. The only thing I'm banking on is that silver is going to go up. Gold is going to go up. And I don't have enough of it. Neither do you. I'm bloody sure you don't. I'm bloody sure I don't. But should you have a bit more money than I do, race off to ainslieybullion.com.au and snavel it now at the price you can get now, because I firmly believe it's only going to go up. There might be these little hesitant drops, but in the next month, things are going to go mad in the market. The market cannot withstand the influences that are currently being put on it in America. It cannot withstand that, long term. So I urge you, if you can, get yourself a little bit of silver. If you're lucky enough to be able to get a bit of gold, get a bit of gold. And do it through ainslieybullion.com.au, where you will get a discount when you buy. If you mention my name or Voice of Freedom, you do it online in the notes section, or if you're going into one of their offices, either in Melbourne or in Brisbane. Brisbane office opened back up again yesterday, I want to say, and trading as normal after the flood and cyclone warnings and damage over the weekend. Not too much damage happened at the Ainsley Bullion Vault, you'll be pleased to know. So, in fact, none at all. Not one drop. So go and check them out, ainslieybullion.com.au, or better still, go in and see them for yourself in Brisbane and in Melbourne. And make sure you say hi from me when you go in there. They are wonderful, wonderful people. I have prattled on a little bit longer than I had hoped for tonight. I do want to just finally address one thing that we quite often talk about, the dickheads on the roads. And I've got plenty of evidence of dickheads on the roads in the wet up here. Hiluxes doing circle work around roundabouts. It's the only time you'll ever get a four-wheel drift out of a Hilux, when there's torrential rain on the ground. Some bloke doing donuts at high-speed donuts, so like driving, spinning. I think they call them 360s. Multiple 360s down a highway in the pouring rain. just wonderful. Plenty of examples of dickheads out on the roads doing, well, what dickheads really do. But sometimes being a dickhead out on the road doesn't mean the car's going fast, doesn't mean the car's going sideways, and doesn't mean the car's revving its tits off. Sometimes it means when you're driving your truck, you need to be really careful about putting the brakes on, especially if you're driving a truck that is filled full of chicken carcasses, because that's what happens when you slam the brakes on in your truck carrying a whole bunch of chicken carcasses. And that, folks, is one hell of a dickhead. I mean, geez. And can you imagine what it smells like? Oh, my Lord. God love you, folks. Have yourself a fabulous evening. If you're out in it, it's just started raining again here now, but we're not expecting much more than a little bit of a drizzle. I can tell you, I didn't film it today, but I will go out tomorrow and try and film it for you. We have had on the property here over 1,500 millimetres of water since last Thursday. I can accurately predict that because I have a metre-high barrel out here that is better part of 30 to 40 centimetres across, and it is full to the brim and was overflowing for a good deal of Sunday and Saturday. So lost huge amounts of water out of it. It was the world's largest rain gauge, so to speak, but I still have over a metre of water in a very large, like I say, 30, 40 centimetre wide tube. And, boy, a lot of water. So we're still in clean-up mode around here. We haven't got the chainsaws out yet. It's still a bit wet underfoot. It's too slippery to get heavy machinery out. The clay doesn't allow us to get that out in, well, these sorts of conditions. And hopefully, I think after tomorrow, we're expecting the sun to actually return. So it should be all right. And we'll start picking up what's left of the trees and go and see what's left of the tractor. Underneath that tractor that I showed you last night, I think I told you there was a slasher. It's not a slasher. It's actually a dozer blade or a drag blade. So with a bit of luck, it just got smacked into the ground, and it still might be working. Anyway, that'll be tomorrow's adventure. You guys be safe and have a good one. I'll talk to you then.
You
Bye.
let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
Boo, I'm still here. I was just having a look through the chat, and it seems that I've forgotten something very important, and that was the FBN promo that Vince has given me a $2 donation to promote. Ah, God, that's 2 nights running, and I haven't played the ad either. So let me tell you about the FBN promo, what he's talking about. Now, one of the people standing for a Senate election seat in South Australia is Kim Hanton, and Vince caught up with him recently, I think just a day or so ago, and they sat down, had a bit of a chat about what Kim's standing for in South Australia in the lead up to the Senate election there for a federal Senate seat, so in the federal election. If you'd like to catch up with that interview with Vince, then I urge you to go to FBN Media, either on YouTube or on Rumble. But I think it gets uploaded to YouTube for sure. I'm not sure about Rumble at this stage, but it's Vince's first real interview outside of the live show that he did with me, and I've had a bit of a look at it. It's very good. So if you are in South Australia and you are considering who you might, if you are going to put pen to paper at vote time, you're going to want to have a bit of an idea about who you're going to vote for. Well, Kim, we've had him on the Voice of Freedom before, as a lovely bloke, and go and have a look at that chat on FBN Media with Vince, and certainly be very interested in your thoughts on Vince's current media career and standing, and whether or not we need to give him a pay rise. If we are going to give him a pay rise, please watch this.
Hi, are you passionate about supporting independent media and social events? Voice of Freedom is dedicated to bringing you the latest happenings and things that matter. But we can't do it without your help. By donating, sponsoring, or becoming a member, you're not just supporting our mission. You're joining a community that values transparency and engagement. Your contributions allow us to continue producing high-quality content that informs and inspires. Visit VOFHQ.com to make a donation or explore sponsorship or membership opportunities. You can even donate using crypto. Together, we can amplify voices that deserve to be heard as we continue to create a vibrant platform for social change. Go to VOFHQ.com, help us to help you by joining us and making a difference today.